Have you ever felt like something about yourself doesn't quite fit, but you can't explain why? There is a strong possibility that you have thought the same at different times yourself. For me, it was one experience that turned me into someone who started questioning things that had never occurred to me before. Questions like what makes me make the choices I do, and why some experiences define me while others fade into the background. In today's video, I'll take you through the psychology of knowing you, where we'll unravel these layers of self-awareness, identity, and the hidden forces shaping your perception of who you are. During my younger years, I held a steadfast perception of myself. I would easily describe my personality traits to others before I turned younger. I felt that my sense of self was firm and immovable. Then, one moment of extreme crisis emerged, suddenly to break free of the self-assurance I had always possessed. The transformation struck me all at once without any gradual process. When my inner self received its first shock, it became clear that all perceived knowledge about myself could crumble like glass under minimal force. This experience forced me to doubt everything about my identity. My previous sense of self no longer appeared true about the person I was. My previous beliefs seemed to fall apart in front of me, since I might only be repeating what now seemed like a scripted story. I became aware of my internal conflicts because my self-perception from the past no longer matched the way I operated in daily life. My discovery that the self I clung to with great care proved less concrete than my previous beliefs made me deeply uncomfortable. The revelation sent me on an examination of myself while I had to face difficult realities regarding my fluid identity. External factors had shown me how fast they could modify how I viewed myself. The components of family tradition, along with social conventions, as well as relationship bonds together with incidental meetings, managed to create my self-identity that I assumed would remain exclusively mine. However, I started to ask myself whether the true authentic portions of my self-concept existed, given the extent to which external factors had influenced my identity. And that is the challenge we all face. Which part of our identity stems from our inner self, while another part results from social training? What parts constitute a frozen identity, while other areas exist within transformations? Starting to question established life narratives becomes our key concern after spending all our lives supporting them. To gain self-knowledge, one must avoid holding on to fixed personhood. Every person experiences perpetual transformation throughout their development. Our personal growth results from numerous life encounters, and we possess the ability to actively transform ourselves. The realization of this fact brings freedom even as much as it causes anxiety. It requires a person to abandon previous certainty and embrace the unknown. To truly grasp the psychology of knowing yourself, we first need to examine what self-knowledge is. It is a question that has captivated philosophers, psychologists, and spiritual thinkers for centuries. While their perspectives vary, one thing that remains consistent is that self-knowledge is essential to living a meaningful life. The ancient Greek philosopher Socrates famously declared, "Know thyself," emphasizing that self-inquiry is not just an intellectual exercise, but a key to living with intention. He believed that understanding oneself was fundamental to wisdom and personal growth, arguing that a life without self-examination was an unfulfilled one. And in reality, his words continue to resonate because they highlight an undeniable truth that who we believe ourselves to be shapes everything we do. Meanwhile, one of the most common misconceptions about self-knowledge is the idea that you are supposed to find yourself, as if the self is a hidden object waiting to be discovered. But what if there is no single, fixed self to find? What if you are constantly creating yourself? Jean-Paul Sartre argued that existence precedes essence, meaning that you are not born with a predefined self. Instead, You become who you are through your choices and actions. In other words, you do not have to figure out who you are before you start living. You shape your identity by living. This is both freeing and terrifying. It means that there is no final answer to the question, who am I? You will never reach a point where you have fully solved the puzzle of yourself. But it also means that you are not bound by past versions of yourself. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to outgrow old ideas, habits, even friendships. Beyond the Western philosophical tradition, other schools of thought have explored the nature of selfhood in profound ways. In Buddhist philosophy, the concept of anatta, or no self, challenges the very idea that we have a fixed, permanent identity. Instead of seeing the self as a stable, unchanging core, anatta suggests that what we call self is nothing more than an ever-changing combination of thoughts, emotions, and experiences. This perspective can be unsettling, especially if we have always believed in a concrete sense of identity. However, it also offers the liberating truth that we are not confined by past definitions of ourselves. If the self is fluid, then change is not only possible, but inevitable. Psychologists, too, have weighed in on the complexity of self-knowledge. Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in psychology, introduced the concept of the shadow self. He argued that each person has unconscious aspects of their personality, traits, desires, and tendencies that they suppress or deny. These hidden parts of ourselves can influence our behavior in ways we do not always recognize. Have you ever reacted to a situation in a way that surprised you, or found yourself resisting certain truths about your character? That is the shadow self at work. According to Jung, the path to true self-knowledge requires acknowledging and integrating these hidden aspects, rather than rejecting them. Taken together, these perspectives set the stage for understanding how psychology shapes our perception of self. We are not just the stories we tell ourselves, nor are we fixed beings locked into a single version of identity. Instead, we are dynamic, ever-evolving individuals shaped by experience, introspection, and the unseen forces of our minds. The more we explore, the more we uncover, and the more we realize that knowing ourselves is not about arriving at a final answer, but about engaging in a lifelong process of discovery. Self-awareness is the foundation of knowing yourself. At its core, self-awareness is the ability to observe your thoughts, emotions, and actions with an objective mindset. It's about stepping outside of yourself and recognizing the impact you have on the world around you. You become aware of your strengths, weaknesses, values, desires, and fears, and this awareness allows you to make better choices and engage with the world more authentically. Psychologists often talk about two types of self-awareness: private and public. Private self-awareness is when you reflect on your inner world, that is, your thoughts, emotions, and private experiences. Public self-awareness, on the other hand, is when you're aware of how others perceive you and how you interact with the social world around you. Both forms of awareness are important in their own right, but they offer different insights into who you are. In more recent times, modern psychology has shed light on the complex ways we construct our identities. Our self-concept, or the way we perceive ourselves, is shaped by a combination of three powerful forces: genetics, environment, and experiences. While genetics provide a biological blueprint, our surroundings and the events we go through play a significant role in molding who we believe ourselves to be. The mind, however, is not as objective as we would like to think. Cognitive biases, such as confirmation bias, often lead us to reinforce the beliefs we already hold about ourselves. Instead of challenging our self-perception, we tend to seek out information and experiences that confirm what we think is true, even if that truth is limiting or outdated. Neuroscience takes this even further by revealing that our brain is not as fixed as we once believed. The brain is constantly rewiring itself in response to new experiences, a phenomenon known as neuroplasticity. This suggests that our identity is far more easily influenced than we assume. Who we are today is not necessarily who we have to be tomorrow. Our habits, reactions, and even our personality traits are not set in stone, but are shaped by the ongoing interplay between our brains and our environment. This fluidity of identity is one reason why psychologists like Daniel Kahneman distinguish between two different aspects of the self: the experiencing self and the remembering self. The experiencing self is the version of you that lives in the moment, fully engaged in what is happening right now. It does not analyze or interpret, it simply exists. On the other hand, the remembering self is the one that holds on to memories, crafting a narrative about who you are based on past experiences. It is the remembering self that tells you what you like and dislike, what you are good at, and what kind of person you are. Interestingly, research suggests that the remembering self is the one that ultimately shapes our long-term perception of ourselves. So even if we have experienced 100 moments of happiness, if we recall only one painful moment vividly, that single memory might define our entire perspective. Now, look at your life for a minute and try to determine which one you think you exhibit more. Are you someone who fully lives in the moment, embracing experiences as they come? Or do you find yourself shaped more by past experiences, holding on to memories that define your sense of self? Let us hear why you think so in the comments. Interestingly, studies show that self-awareness is linked to emotional intelligence and overall well-being. In other words, if you find it hard to connect with or understand people on an emotionally aware basis, it could be a reflection of how much you're aware of yourself. Research by psychologist Dr. Tasha Eurich suggests that while most people believe they are self-aware, only a small percentage truly are. Neurological studies also indicate that introspection activates the prefrontal cortex, yet excessive self-analysis can lead to anxiety and self-doubt. So, understanding these mechanisms is important for you, whether you're developing a different career or you just want to build a healthier relationship with yourself. But what are the genuine ways that establish our identity? First, we establish our identity through personal narratives. The journey to knowing yourself is often shaped by the experiences you had growing up. Childhood is a formative period where we develop the beliefs, habits, and attitudes that often shape who we become as adults. Understanding how your past has shaped your present can provide valuable insight into your current behaviors and thought patterns. Many psychologists believe that our early relationships, especially with our caregivers, play a significant role in shaping our sense of self. These early interactions influence how we perceive ourselves and how we relate to others later in life. For instance, if you grew up in a supportive, loving environment, you may have developed a strong sense of self-worth. On the other hand, if your childhood was marked by neglect or criticism, you may struggle with feelings of insecurity or self-doubt. Therefore, exploring your past and understanding how it has shaped your sense of identity can help you make sense of the way you think and behave as an adult. It's not about blaming your past, but rather recognizing how your early experiences may have influenced the way you see yourself today. Our personal experiences and stories create our definition of self because they establish our mental picture of our identity. If you truly want to know yourself, pay attention to the stories you tell about your own life. Humans are natural storytellers, not just in the sense of writing books or making movies, but in the way we construct meaning. Every experience, every memory, every belief is woven into a personal narrative that shapes how we see ourselves. Psychologists call this narrative identity. It is the idea that we define ourselves through the stories we tell about our past. Some people construct empowering narratives, seeing themselves as survivors, learners, or adventurers. Others build limiting narratives, identifying with failure, rejection, or self-doubt. Neither is purely right or wrong. They are simply perspectives. And the fascinating thing is, perspectives can change. These self-labeled stories of being an achiever, failure, or survivor steer our behaviors while determining our choices in life. Therefore, we must now question whether these established personal stories hold factual validity. Our memory principally functions through reconstructive methods to adapt past events to match our current self-image. So, the modern self you perceive exists because your brain constructs this image based on former experiences. Understanding this enables you to rephrase your personal story so it benefits you most effectively. Think about how you describe your past to others. Do you focus on what went wrong or what you learned? Do you see yourself as a passive character to whom things happen, or as an active participant in your own journey? The way you frame your experiences shapes your future. If you define yourself as someone who is always unlucky, you might not notice opportunities when they arise. If you believe you are resilient, you are more likely to keep moving forward even after setbacks. Self-knowledge means recognizing these internal narratives and questioning them. Are they serving you? Are they keeping you stuck? And if they are, can you rewrite them? The past is unchangeable, but the meaning you attach to it is always within your control. Second, we establish our identity through hidden influences on our self-perception. Let's break it down. Our self-knowledge develops through external influences substantially beyond our recognition or acknowledgement. Our self-concept remains ever-shifting as it gets molded by various hidden forces, starting from social conditioning and moving through cultural expectations and peer influence. According to the looking glass self theory, we form our self-perception from our beliefs about how others view us. In addition, the Asch conformity studies alongside other experiments in social psychology show how people yield to group pressures and match their beliefs with those present in their surroundings. Mankind faces an essential dilemma with one question: how much of who we are is truly our creation, and how much is a reflection of societal expectations? Again, think about it for a moment. This is why one of the most important aspects of knowing yourself is cultivating self-acceptance. It's easy to be critical of yourself, to focus on your flaws and shortcomings. But the truth is, knowing yourself isn't about perfecting yourself. It's about accepting all parts of who you are, the strengths and weaknesses, the triumphs and failures. When you can accept yourself without judgment, you open up the possibility for growth and transformation. Self-acceptance is the foundation of self-love. When you accept yourself, you acknowledge your inherent worth as a person. You recognize that you are enough, just as you are. This doesn't mean that you don't want to grow or improve, but it does mean that you embrace yourself as a work in progress. You give yourself permission to make mistakes, to stumble, and to learn along the way. This doesn't mean that you should ignore areas where you can improve. On the contrary, self-acceptance involves acknowledging your flaws and working towards self-improvement in a compassionate, non-judgmental way. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a close friend. Thirdly, we discover our identity through the active pursuit of a genuine understanding of self. Naturally, the inability to establish reliable self-knowledge through external influences makes it difficult to determine if people truly know themselves. Developing strong self-awareness provides us with the solution. Through practices like mindfulness and journaling, we gain the ability to observe our thoughts objectively, which reveals patterns we previously overlooked. One method for achieving this is through shadow work, as proposed by Carl Jung, provides one method for achieving this. According to Carl, we must face our buried fears as well as yearnings before we can unite them with our aware personality. The Big Five personality test along with other psychological assessments, provide test takers with objective results about their traits. Additionally, research into brain neuroplasticity demonstrates that our personality and behavioral patterns remain flexible because our central nervous system possesses adaptive capabilities. Similarly, research on meditation proves that practicing mindfulness builds personal insight while it decreases mental bias effects. Multiple psychological investigations confirm that purposeful self-examination creates both understanding and inner satisfaction. Therefore, understanding yourself requires understanding your changing identity because it exists as a dynamic entity. Of course, this understanding cannot be done in isolation of the role that emotions play in our lives. Emotions play a huge role in shaping who we are. They influence our thoughts, actions, and interactions with others. Developing the ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions can greatly enhance your journey of self-discovery. Psychologist Daniel Goleman identified 5 key components of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. The first one, self-awareness, is the foundation of knowing yourself. It involves recognizing your emotions as they arise and understanding how they influence your behavior. For example, when you feel angry, do you know why? Is it frustration, disappointment, or fear disguised as anger? Understanding the root of your emotions allows you to manage them more effectively. Instead of reacting impulsively, you can respond with awareness and intention. Self-regulation is essentially the ability to control your emotional reactions. This does not mean suppressing emotions, but rather learning how to express them in healthy ways. A strong sense of self-awareness helps with this. When you know your emotional triggers, you can take steps to navigate them rather than being controlled by them. Motivation refers to what drives you. Are your goals aligned with your true desires, or are they shaped by external expectations? Sometimes, people chase goals that do not truly fulfill them because they feel pressured by societal norms. Taking the time to reflect on what genuinely excites. Like I mentioned, before this period I believed that I fully understood what life had in store. I had a specific life direction because I had both a strong personal identity along with a plan for my future. Life was good, right, wrong. Multiple rejections along with failures stripped me to the point where I examined everything from my morals to my targets, in addition to doubting my basic character traits. It was terrifying to admit that my true self escaped. But through that process, I discovered something profound. The discovery of true self-knowledge means accepting that knowledge requires open-mindedness to modify and mature. Humans inevitably face different moments throughout life where we doubt our identities and our actual life aspirations. At some point, you might start to doubt your existence by wondering whether you truly act as yourself or just act out a predetermined plan. This universal risk creates connections between people because it reveals our ongoing quest to discover ourselves, which stems from basic human nature. Take the mirror, for example. Imagine that the mirror shows you only partial elements of yourself and conceals everything else in darkness. This is the way we view ourselves at times, through a warped perspective made up of both former life moments and society-imposed beliefs. But actual self-discovery matches the size and depth of an ocean. The ocean extends infinitely in all directions, while its movements are timeless and cannot fit within a single glance. Discovering your authentic self requires looking beneath superficial reflections about your identity. Basically, your perception of yourself emerges from stories that you can modify. Self-perception depends heavily on external factors. Thus, proper self-awareness stands as a fundamental ability. True self-knowledge requires acceptance of personal development through constant evolution. All the elements of self-awareness must be comprehended to develop a profound understanding of our genuine self. So today, devote some time for self-reflection about your existence and personal nature. Write down your thought process in a journal while you reflect on the things you believe honestly. A distinct self-review creates a deeper inspection that uncovers progressively advanced elements of yourself. The more you explore, the more you uncover the depths of your existence. So, dare to question, dare to discover, and most importantly, dare to truly know yourself. Maybe the greatest secret in life isn't to find out who you truly are, but to realize you have the power to become who you want to be. Every moment, every thought, every choice is shaping your identity. You're not bound by yesterday's story, you're writing today's. Understanding yourself isn't about reaching a final destination. It's about embracing the endless journey of becoming. Ask yourself this: what parts of your identity have you never questioned? Which narratives are you holding on to that no longer serve you? Take a moment today, right now, and begin rewriting your story. Because the truth is, your true self isn't something you discover, it's something you create. So let's continue this conversation. Share your insights in the comments. What's one belief about yourself you're ready to rewrite today? Don't forget to subscribe. Your journey towards genuine self-awareness and lasting transformation begins here.